Welcome back to American Civil War Facts. Today, we're looking at 10 mysteries from the Civil War. If you enjoyed today's video, I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe buttons. Let's get to it. The American Civil War was a brutal and bloody conflict that tore the nation apart and which continues to fascinate and haunt us to this day. From the battlefields of Gettysburg to the swamps of the Deep South, the war left an indelible mark on the American landscape and psyche. But even after more than 150 years, the Civil War still holds its secrets close, mysteries that continue to baffle historians and ignite debate. We'll delve into the shadows of this pivotal period, examining 10 mysteries that continue to fascinate and intrigue us, reminding us that the past is never truly past. Number 1. Henry Wirz's missing skull. Andersonville. Even whispered, the name conjures images of suffering, a living hell carved out of the Georgia clay. It was here, within the confines of this notorious Confederate prison camp, that thousands of Union soldiers endured unimaginable hardship, their bodies ravaged by disease, starvation, and despair. Overseeing this human abyss was Captain Henry Wirz, a Swiss-born physician who became the embodiment of Confederate cruelty in the eyes of the Union North. When the war ended, Wirz faced a military tribunal, a trial that would expose the horrors of Andersonville to a nation still reeling from the war's devastation. Found guilty of war crimes, Wirz was hanged in November of 1865, his body laid to rest in Washington, D.C. But the story does not end there. 4 years later, when Wirz's family sought to relocate his remains, a gruesome discovery awaited them. His skull was missing, vanished without a trace. Rumors began to circulate, whispers of a Union soldier who'd absconded with the skull, a macabre souvenir of wartime vengeance. The whereabouts of Wirz's skull remains a mystery, a chilling reminder of the macabre scars left by the conflict. Number 2. The lost gold of the Confederacy. In the spring of 1865, Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate capital, lay smoldering, its streets filled with the debris of a lost cause. The Confederacy was in its death throes, its armies shattered, its hopes dwindling with each passing day. As the Union Army closed in, Confederate President Jefferson Davis and his cabinet fled their besieged capital, carrying with them not only the weight of defeat, but a treasure trove of Confederate wealth. Millions of dollars in gold, silver, and other valuables, the lifeblood of the Confederacy, vanished into the chaos of war, its ultimate destination shrouded in mystery. Theories abound as to what became of the Confederate treasury. Some whisper of hidden caches, buried deep in the Georgia soil, awaiting rediscovery. Others speculate that the gold lined the pockets of fleeing Confederate officials, a final act of self-preservation in the face of defeat. Despite numerous expeditions, countless hours poured over faded maps and cryptic diaries, the Confederate gold remains elusive, a phantom fortune that continues to capture the imagination. Did it vanish entirely, lost to the chaos of war, or does it still lie hidden, awaiting a fortunate soul to unlock its secrets? Number 3. The Sultana. The spring of 1865. The war, for all intents and purposes, was over. The long nightmare of bloodshed and division finally drawing to a close. For the weary soldiers of the Union, imprisoned in Confederate camps, a new journey was beginning, a journey home. Among the vessels tasked with bringing these men home was the steamship Sultana. She was a side-wheel paddle steamer built for the cotton trade on the Mississippi. Now, refitted for war, she became a lifeline for those yearning for home. On April 27th, the Sultana departed Vicksburg, Mississippi, her decks crammed with more than 2,000 souls, most of them Union soldiers, emaciated and weakened by their time in captivity. They were eager to return to their families, to rebuild their lives. They carried with them the scars of war, both visible and unseen. But the river, as we know, is an unforgiving mistress, and the Sultana's journey home would be tragically cut short. just a few miles north of Memphis, Tennessee, disaster struck. At 2 o'clock in the morning, as most of the passengers and crew slept, the Sultana's boilers exploded with a force that shook the night. The wooden upper decks were ripped apart, sending hundreds into the icy waters. Survivors struggled to stay afloat amidst the wreckage and cries of the dying. The river had become a churning graveyard. Estimates of the lost range as high as 1,800 souls. Was the Sultana disaster an accident or sabotage? In 1888, a St. Louis resident claimed that Robert Loudon, a Confederate agent, told him that he sabotaged the Sultana by tossing a coal torpedo, a shell disguised as a piece of coal, into the ship's coal box. Whatever the true cause, the Sultana remains one of the worst maritime tragedies in American history. Number 4. Lee's Lost Order, September 1862. The war had entered its second year, and the Confederacy, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, was on the offensive. Emboldened by victory at Second Manassas, Lee made the fateful decision to invade the North, carrying the war into the heart of the Union. His objective: Maryland, a border state with divided loyalties. Lee hoped to secure supplies, recruit new soldiers, and perhaps, just perhaps, deliver a blow that would convince the North to sue for peace. To achieve this, Lee devised a daring plan, outlined in Special Order 191. The orders detailed the movements of his army, divided into several columns, converging on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, a strategic point on the Potomac River. But fate, as it often does in war, had other plans. For Special Order 191, entrusted to a courier, would soon be lost, setting in motion a chain of events that would alter the course of the Maryland campaign. On September 13th, as the Army of Northern Virginia marched, a Union soldier discovered a curious package lying in a field near Frederick, Maryland. A sheet of paper was wrapped around 3 cigars, a seemingly innocuous find, but upon closer inspection, it proved to be anything but. The paper was a copy of Lee's Special Order 191, a detailed blueprint of Confederate movements, outlining their positions, strengths, and objectives. It was an intelligence coup of unprecedented proportions, falling into Union hands seemingly by pure chance. Word of the discovery reached General George McClellan, commander of the Army of the Potomac. McClellan, often criticized for his cautious nature, now held in his hands the key to Lee's entire campaign. The lost orders would have a profound impact on the Battle of Antietam, fought just days later. McClellan, armed with the knowledge of Lee's plans, was able to anticipate Confederate movements and concentrate his forces to confront Lee's still divided army near Antietam Creek. The identity of who lost the order remains a mystery, but there is circumstantial evidence that a favorite of Jackson, Henry Kyd Douglas, may have been the careless courier. The truth is, we may never know. Number 5. The wounding and death of Stonewall Jackson. It is May 1863. The small Virginia town of Chancellorsville, surrounded by dense woods, became the stage for one of the most significant battles of the war. It was here that General Robert E. Lee, facing a larger Union force, would achieve one of his most audacious victories. Central to this victory was General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, Lee's most trusted lieutenant, a man whose very name inspired both fear and admiration. Jackson, known for his unwavering piety and his lightning-fast marches, was a master of maneuver warfare. At Chancellorsville, Jackson executed a brilliant flanking maneuver, marching his troops through the dense woods to strike the unsuspecting Union right flank. The attack, launched at dusk, sent the Union 11 Corps reeling in disarray, turning the tide of the battle in the Confederacy's favor. But the victory at Chancellorsville would come at a terrible cost. For in the chaos of battle, a tragic incident unfolded, one that would rob the Confederacy of its most brilliant military mind. On the night of May 2nd, returning from a reconnaissance mission, Jackson and his staff rode through the moonlit woods, their minds still consumed by the day's victory. As they approached their own lines, they were mistaken for Union cavalry by men of the 18th North Carolina Regiment. In the confusion and darkness, shots rang out. Jackson, struck by 3 bullets, fell from his horse, his left arm shattered. He was carried from the field, his life hanging in the balance. The news of Jackson's wounding spread like wildfire through the Confederate ranks, casting a pall over their recent victory. Lee, upon hearing the news, remarked, "He has lost his left arm, but I have lost my right." Jackson's arm was amputated, and for a time, it seemed he might recover. But complications arose. Pneumonia set in, and on May 10, 1863, Stonewall Jackson breathed his last. He was just 39 years old. While the shooting is widely accepted as accidental, some historians question the circumstances, considering Jackson's importance to the Confederate war effort. Was it a simple case of mistaken identity, or was there more to the story? But in May 2013, astronomers calculated the moon's position and phase and linked this data to the location of Jackson's party, as well as that of the 18th North Carolina at the time of the shooting, around 9 p.m. that night. According to this data, Jackson would have appeared as simply a dark silhouette that night, adding more weight to the fact this was simply a friendly fire accident. Number 6. The Glowing Soldiers of Shiloh. The Battle of Shiloh, fought in southwestern Tennessee in April of 1862, was one of the bloodiest engagements of the war. Thousands lay dead or dying on the battlefield as a cold rain began to fall. But as darkness fell on the second day, something strange began to happen among the wounded. A soft, ethereal blue-green light seemed to emanate from their wounds. The soldiers whose wounds emitted this strange light seemed to fare better. Word spread through the ranks of this angel's glow, a mysterious phenomenon that offered hope amidst the carnage. For years, the story of the glowing soldiers of Shiloh was whispered around campfires. Some dismissed it as a myth, but others knew it was real. In 2001, students Bill Martin and John Curtis tackled the mystery for a science fair project. Their research led them to bioluminescence. They focused on photorhabdus luminescens, a bacterium emitting blue-green light. The nematodes carrying this bacteria could have entered soldiers' wounds, causing the glow. This bacterium also produces a potent antibiotic, preventing infection. Number 7. John Wilkes Booth's escape and death. The night of April 14, 1865, a nation plunged into mourning. President Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator, lay dead, felled by an assassin's bullet. The assassin, John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer and renowned actor, had fled into the night, sparking a massive manhunt. For 12 days, Booth eluded capture, his name whispered in fear and anger across the country. The authorities were determined to bring him to justice, and the nation held its breath, waiting for news. Finally, on April 26th, word reached Washington that Booth had been cornered and killed in a barn near Port Royal, Virginia. The official story is that Booth, trapped in a burning barn, had been shot and killed by a Union soldier, Sergeant Boston Corbett. His body was brought back to Washington, identified, and buried. But soon, rumors and innuendo arose that contradicted the official narrative. Some claimed the man killed in the barn was not Booth. Others whispered Booth was seen alive long after his supposed death. In 1995, Booth's descendants petitioned for DNA testing to end the rumors. The court denied their request, citing concerns about preserving the historical record. The mystery of Booth's escape and death remains unsolved. Number 8. The Dahlgren Affair. By early 1864, the Civil War had entered its brutal final act. Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate capital, stood as a symbol of defiance. A daring raid was planned, shrouded in secrecy and controversy. Leading one of 2 columns on this mission was Colonel Ulrich Dahlgren, known for his bravery. Dahlgren and his men set out in late February 1864. Their targets, Libby and Belle Isle prisons, both packed with Union prisoners of war. The raid was plagued by misfortune. Dahlgren's force became separated during their approach to Richmond. On March 2, 1864, disaster struck. Dahlgren's detachment was ambushed by Confederate forces near King and Queen Courthouse. Confederate soldiers claimed to have discovered documents on Dahlgren's body. These papers allegedly contained orders to assassinate Confederate President Jefferson Davis. The Confederate government made the documents public, denouncing the Union. Union officials denied the assassination orders, claiming the documents were forgeries. However, historian Stephen Sears speculates that Lincoln's Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, authorized the assassination of Davis. Oddly, after the war, Stanton requested the Dahlgren documents from the War Department, and they've not been seen since. Number 9. William T. Sherman's insanity. In October 1861, Brigadier General Sherman was placed in charge of the Department of Kentucky. The pressures of the job led to him sending gloomy dispatches to Washington. The press picked up on Sherman's pessimistic attitude and began printing critical articles of him. The Cincinnati Commercial newspaper even wrote that Sherman was insane. A visit by the Secretary of War to Sherman's headquarters did not help matters. In November, Sherman asked to be relieved. In December, he was placed on recuperative leave. In a letter to his brother, Sherman admitted to contemplating suicide. But he soon recovered, returned to duty, and was given increased responsibility by his friend Ulysses Grant. Number 10. President Lincoln was the subject of numerous assassination attempts. In 1864, 9 months before he was fatally shot by John Wilkes Booth, he was riding alone to the old soldier's home outside of Washington, D.C. A shot rang out that spooked his horse, which took Lincoln on a wild ride. President Lincoln arrived, without his hat, at the old soldier's home. The following day, 2 soldiers went looking for the hat and discovered it on the path with a musket ball hole through the side. President Lincoln, for his part, dismissed the incident as a likely hunting accident. He told the soldiers that rumors of an assassination plot would be more dangerous to the Union's cause than silence. Later, he shared the story as an anecdote among friends. The American Civil War was a conflict that left an indelible mark on the landscape and the national psyche. The echoes of that tumultuous era reverberate still, not just in the hallowed grounds of battlefields, but in the enduring mysteries that continue to fascinate and intrigue. From the missing head of Henry Weirs to a possible assassination attempt, these unsolved puzzles offer a glimpse into the complexities of the war and the human dramas that unfolded amidst the chaos. They remind us that history is not a static collection of dates and names, but a living tapestry woven from countless threads of experience, memory, and speculation. I encourage you to explore the links provided in the description below to learn more about these captivating Civil War mysteries. Your support, through likes, subscriptions, and shares, helps keep this channel alive and allows us to continue exploring the fascinating and often overlooked corners of American history.